What's up, world? This is Rob with LiveLOUD coming at you guys again with another episode of Say It Loud. Again, this has been such a fantastic journey to be able to go and celebrate people, the story that they're up to, hear about impactors around the world. So if this sounds something that you might be interested in, please tune in, please follow, please share. This space, Say It Loud, is really where we get to celebrate people who are creating change around the world in their way, in their method, through their business, through their craft, and to really be able to offer those services, but also to really celebrate the journey on the mission, on what it took. Was it hardship? Was it triumph? What were those intimate moments that we experienced in our lives that we utilized to transform it? And another reason why we share this, why I'm choosing to share this information and to share these amazing people, is that we might be in that transition right now. I mean, when are we ever not? We are in this transition of what could be, what are we creating? So to utilize what we have in our lives presently, what we might be going through, what we might have overcome, and utilize it to radiate out with purpose, with power, and with progress. And so today I have my guest Jordan, who I was introduced to recently, and we'll dive into her world to get to hear more about what she's up to. So Jordan, thank you so much for jumping on the call with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, awesome. So Jordan, why don't you get into who are you? What do you do? What does that manifest into in reality?
Yeah, what great questions, right? Like, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah.
My name is Jordan. I like to call myself a whole life strategist and coach. So I have my own coaching and consulting business, and I've had that for a couple years now. And the way that that shows up in the world and like with what I do is many capacities. So I work with individuals, I work with groups, and then I work with organizations. And I take a lot of different modalities into the work that I do. So I don't like to think of myself as a one-trick pony. And I use the word whole because I believe that we are complete and whole beings. And so I like to see how I can support people to live more holistically thriving lives. And my background comes through initially in like strategy and advertising and communication. So I'm a really like critical thinker and analytical thinker. But then I started studying like ancient healing practices. So yoga and Ayurveda and mindfulness. And I got super passionate about those modalities. And I decided to try to figure out how can I take all these things that I'm excited about and passionate about and help people live really full and whole, authentic lives. So that's the work that I do, and it shows up in a lot of different ways.
That's amazing. That's one hell of a pitch, actually. That's very awesome that you're that clear on the different ways. I mean, I think a lot of times, especially coming from the coaching world, you know, I'm not sure if I got to share with you, but I'm a coach. You know, I've been certified as a coach since 2009. And so to work with people on this wide range of dynamics, but really to how do you really specialize in something? How do you be specific? And I love that you're articulating that you work with the whole and how to like bridge that gap and really then, you know, close those loops and feel that synchrony within ourselves in our work. So what else does that look like? How do you show up with your clients? What kind of work do you usually do with your people? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I like to think of it like I think we're all on some sort of mission, and some of us take time to try to define that and refine that. And sometimes it just comes through organically and naturally. So for me, I feel like I'm on a mission to bring more authenticity and self-healing into every moment, every interaction that I have with people. That's such a huge value of mine. And so I find that the people that I work with have a vision for their life that they're not quite sure how it can turn into reality. So it's maybe this ethereal thought that is formless and has been kind of like eating away at them for quite some time, but they haven't given it the space and breath to like come to life. So I work with people to kind of guide them towards their own inner journey of like healing and self-awareness and curiosity, and then an outward journey of like, how do I take all of these amazing things that I'm learning about myself and integrate them into a life that feels like very authentic and true to me. That's kind of my biggest value. It's like, how do I support people to live a life that feels true and authentic to them?
Yeah, that's so powerful. It's funny that you actually say that, because in a lot of ways, that's actually how I work with my clientele. You know, my brand is called, you know, visual branding, photo, video, and consulting. But the very last thing that I do is pull out the camera. Beforehand, I want to really dive into your inner self about what's your mission, what's your vision, who are you speaking to? Why are you speaking to them? What do you want to cause? And how do we authentically communicate that story so that it generates the results that we want to see? So it's how often do we come across that, where even within ourselves or other people who they want to go for something, they're just not quite sure what it is, so they need to do the internal work, and they do the internal work, but they don't know how to express it outwardly. So that number and dance to it's something that really goes hand in hand. So that's really amazing. So how is it that you got into this world? How is it that you started working and discovering this with people? What was your own journey that became your path?
Yeah, I mean, I initially, I kind of mentioned, but my background is in advertising. So that was like the first 7 years of my career. And I was a strategist. And so my job was to always kind of think and rethink and overthink and really try to understand people and why they do what they do. And in that time, I was like, how can I figure out why they do what they do so that we can sell them products, right? But the part that I loved about my job, which was not that, the part that I loved about my job was really thinking curiously about people and why they show up in the way they do in the world. And really trying to be inspirational and prolific in how I support people to create bridges and connections and stuff. So I wasn't feeling that was aligned with what I was passionate about. And it wasn't until I started to get into other healing modalities that I realized the thing that I want to do most in the world is to be in service and to help other people. And that I was very obsessed with my own healing journey. So it really became how do I dive into my own healing journey? And then I realized I discovered all these incredible tools and I wanted to share them with other people. To go way further back as to why do I have this fixation on living an authentic life? I think before you and I talked, I put a lot of thought into why do we do what we do? Why are the problems that we want to solve in the world so important to us? And I was so inspired by the story that you told me. So I started to think back into my own stories. When did that moment begin that I became really fixated on this idea of living an authentic life? And it was kind of funny because I thought all the way back to fourth grade. I was like, oh, it started in fourth grade. Not that I was clear that this was the path I wanted to go on, but it was a pivotal point where my life changed. And it's really simple, but I was significantly bullied when I was a kid. And I'll never forget it. I'm not going to say the person's name, we'll call her Sarah. But I remember Sarah didn't like that her boyfriend liked me. And she got so upset and jealous that she decided that nobody could be my friend. So she made it so that nobody was my friend and I had no friends. And this was in fourth grade, in this time where you're everything is confusing and you're growing up in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so for many years, from fourth to sixth grade, I had very few friends, very little social interaction. And it was so hard to be trying to navigate the world and not understand why you weren't accepted or belonging in that space. To feel like you're not invited to things and you're not included, and you really are sitting there picking apart everything that you think could be wrong with you. That makes it so that you're not belonging in a circumstance. And so that's where I really started my journey of feeling like I don't belong. That's when I believed that in order to be to belong, I can't be myself because who I am doesn't belong in my social environment and is not accepted. So I think that was the moment that lie was planted in my mind. And things change and evolve through middle school and high school. Then my main goal was, how do I belong? How do I fit in? How do I make friends? And so the story that I told myself was, who do I have to be to fit in, right? Who do I have to pretend to be? What do I have to do? What do I have to pretend to in order to fit in with the cool kids, the popular kids, the group to be socially accepted? And so I think of it I just kept putting on masks of people that wasn't really me, so that I could feel that sensation of belonging that was stripped away from me when I was so young, right? And I was actually listening to the new Alicia Keys book. I'm so obsessed with it. I highly recommend it. But she talks a lot of this, like when we begin to compromise ourselves, like we compromise our truth, not in the big moments, but in the small micro moments, and they build over time. So I believe like in fourth grade, that was when I began to like slowly compromise myself, to hide my truth, to feel like it wasn't accepted, if that makes sense. And it continued to show up until I was in college. And then I think that comes through with like numbing, like partying and drinking and going out and being involved with people that weren't truly my friends, just so that I could feel a sense of belonging, but doing that in a way that I'm not myself. And I think that was some of the deepest pain I felt, was I never felt accepted for who I truly was. And so I did a lot of trying to escape, but not sure how. So a lot of like travel and going inward and all of those things. And so fast forward to my career in advertising, when I was in that space, I still didn't feel like a sense of belonging. I still, like at 28 years old, I was in an environment where I still felt like in order to feel like I could belong, I had to put masks on. I had to pretend I was interested in different things. I had to pretend I liked going out and drinking when I didn't. If all of this makes sense, you know? And so I just looked up and I was like, I'm so tired of living a life that doesn't feel like it's mine. Even if it's the great job at the great company, with a relationship that people talk about they want, I just looked around and I said, this isn't me. I don't know whose life I'm living, but it's not the one that makes me feel like me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes so much sense. There's so many things that come up. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that story. I definitely, there's, you know, especially in those primary ages where we're really establishing that inner critic, that inner voice that's really going to speak towards and dictate a lot of the decisions and our filters on how we interpret our lives. You know, when things are flowing with grace and when things are just going really well, there's just kind of ease and kind of enjoyment that happens. But when we encounter hardship or criticism or the lack of, and it draws a certain amount of pains, that becomes a very abrupt experience and process. And in those abrupt experiences and process, before we actually know or spend time with who we are and we had that solid foundation to rely on, we have this kind of like misinformed interpretation about what's real, you know? And so we could take that information and try to operate based on this conclusion that we derived from before, you know? So fitting in, wanting to be accepted, being worthy, being enough, all these conversations that come in, and it's incredible that there's so many people that even go a lifetime without really encountering that voice on, well, where does it come from? What am I doing? So for you to work with people on their authenticity, onto diving past the layers of not what I concluded, but what really is, and to operate from there, I think is a really powerful thing.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that all humans intrinsically like want to live their true self. Like I believe that we want to live a life that is an expression of who we feel like we innately are. And the thing that I think is beautiful is that evolves and changes. Like who I am today doesn't have to be who I am in a year or 5 years or 6 years. I might call myself a coach today, but I give myself permission that that'll evolve and change. But the thing that I feel committed to is like when I show up in a room, I don't feel like I have to pretend to be something else in order to thrive. And I think it's a lie that we're told, or like whether it's explicitly or not, that who you are is not accepted. And I want to work so diligently of how to debunk that lie that we're told and that we believe, and how we can all live so vibrantly ourselves in all expressions of the way that we show up in the world, whether it's through work or for relationships or hobbies or whatever. Like I think that's where we find our true happiness. And I think it's also like, I think it's what the world needs, is those gifts deep down inside of us that maybe we shove into the closet and don't think that they're worth anything. I tend to think that's the beauty that we are here to give to the world. And so the work that I do with people, it's typically that they've had this vision for themselves, and it's this voice that's been there for a while. It could be years or it could be decades. And they're like, and I think that voice is their intuition, their truth, that's like wanting to be expressed externally. But there's so many layers as to why we don't do that, right? Like there's limiting beliefs, there's false stories, there's trauma, there's external factors and expectations. And it's like, how do we look at all of those things and really like kind of pull them away so that you can get down to that truth and hear what it's trying to tell you so it can be expressed externally, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. This is such gold. Yeah. I really appreciate you expressing this, because it speaks true. And there's several people that I've worked with, even myself, that I have to work through with these conversations, and to really be mindful about that, and really being able to kind of like clean and shed and do that work internally to redefine. A lot of things, my journey, I think in consciousness started off with what can I learn? What can I implement? And then over time, it gradually became what can I unlearn and what could I redefine? And then over time, even more so, it was like, how can I be? And at the fundamental core of it is to really kind of disconnect with my conclusions and how I operate in kind of the left side of the brain. That is very obviously useful. It keeps us alive. It keeps us progressing and doing all that stuff. But to the balance and the synchrony between progression and preservation, to be able to move forward consciously, authentically, powerfully, and the preservation to honor my truth. Where's my spirit? Where's my soul? How am I internally? And having that line and to show up how we are with our families, how we are in our business, how we are in relationship with ourselves. I think it's such beautiful work that you're doing. I really enjoy this conversation a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I love that question. How do I be? Like, how do I just be fully me in my own life? And it's always it feels so complex yet so simple. But I think what's complex is the ways in which we're in our own way. I also think what can be hard and complex, like say you want to live in this way, like you want to feel like uniquely yourself and you want to be a more conscious, thoughtful being. For me, the thing that I feel like stops a lot of us is the busyness, like of our lives, right? Like our lives are so demanding and so consuming. Like when do we really have the space and time to just be? Right? Like to just be with ourselves and to do that inner work and to heal. And so, I mean, I kind of mentioned, but for me, I was 28 years old. I was working at an incredible ad agency, and it was everything that I'd been working towards. And I looked up and I was like, but this isn't at all what I want.
Yep.
And that is a crazy realization to be like, I've been working towards this for like 10 years. And it's not where I want to be. It doesn't feel like me, but I was too busy in my life to like understand why. And so, but I was drawn towards doing healing work, like helping others. And that started when I started teaching yoga. I remember after the first yoga class I taught, I had no intention to be a yoga teacher. I was like, I just like yoga. I don't want to teach it. And I taught, and it was so powerful to like see that just by expressing something that was important to me and sharing through this modality of teaching, that I could impact other people's lives. And they came up to me afterwards, and it meant so much to them and was moving to them. And that was one of the most rewarding moments I had in my life, was just this simple yoga class. And so I was like, that is what I want to make my life about, but I have no idea how. And I was in this tizzy and this frenzy of like all my internal stories that were stopping me from doing that. But I got this incredible opportunity to live at a retreat center in the Dominican Republic, which was like a healing retreat center. And I got invited to do that. And initially I was just going to go for 2 months. And I actually ended up quitting my job and like putting everything in storage. And I stayed there for 6 months. And when I left, my main objective was like, how do I heal? Like, how do I just give myself time to heal from all these old wounds, these false stories, these limiting beliefs that are like holding me back from living a life that feels true to me? And that was one of the most beautiful journeys I went on. I, after that, went to India for a couple months and then drove cross country. Like, it was this incredible year of inwardness. I don't think I could do the work that I'm doing and support people if I personally didn't take that space and time for myself to do my own healing, so that I can support people on their journeys as well. That is by no means to say I feel like I'm done. It just means like that was a really potent year that I learned a lot about myself. And I learned a lot about these different modalities and techniques that people can heal from and learn from and grow from. That was one of the best decisions and scariest decisions I ever made in my life.
I mirror that. Yeah, I totally get that. I went pretty much from my travels. I came back, it's going on a year now. About that time from about 2.5 to 3 years of consistently traveling. Like I would plug back into New York briefly and then I would leave again. And in that time, like I was out there mission based. I'm working on a travel documentary, but at the same time, it was my time to really tap into myself, my spirituality, my healing, my voice. I myself have gotten caught up plenty of times, and even I get caught up still on the doingness. All right, well, what do I do? If I'm going to be, what do I do? What does that look like? If I'm not doing anything, I'm not doing anything. But it's just like, that's not necessarily the case. The beingness, the uncovering that kind of stuff, the doing is the byproduct of really aligning to something internally and really just doing that type of internal work. So it's not just getting caught up on that stuff. And I think that's really such a golden message. I really appreciate that. That was really solid. Jordan, I feel like I could talk to you for days about this stuff, man. You were speaking my language completely.
I know. I love it.
Yeah. So where can people follow your work, tap into that, to see your services or to jump on the bandwagon, or even just to learn more from you? Where can people follow your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest thing to remember is my Instagram is Mindful Jordan, at Mindful Jordan. That has a link to my website through there, which is, it's a hard one to spell, jordanaftanas.com. Maybe I could put it in the thing.
Yeah, we'll put it in the video.
Yeah, I can put my website on there, but I have a lot of free offerings. Like that's one of my other big values is just access and generosity. It's very important to me that I reach as many people as possible. So I have free workshops and support groups weekly. I have newsletters. I have an online community I just created, actually co-created with my friend Christine, who connected us. And it's called Express Your Truth. And it's this amazing resource center of all kinds of tools and events and people sharing. And it's really beautiful. And so that is also, you can find that through my Instagram. And that's one of my favorite things I'm working on right now beyond my client work. So there's lots of ways to connect with me. I'm out there.
That's fantastic. I'm going to plug this information into. So if you guys are listening to this conversation, if this has resonated with you, if this is the type of conversation, these are the type of inquiries, questions, thoughts, wonders, if you're in that space of redefining, rediscovering, trying to find that alignment, what is my truth? How do I operate within that? Please follow Jordan. I'm going to put her information here. Really, again, a space for us to have these conversations, to really discover what that might be for us and to create that movement, but intentional movement, something that's really authentic to us, not for the sake of movement because we need to, but for the sake of evolving and creating because we get to. And so really tapping into what that might be. And again, if you guys find value in these conversations, in these stories, please subscribe, hit the like button, follow, share. This whole platform is to really celebrate game changers who are out in the world creating their magic and really hearing their story on why they doing what they do and what that looks like and how that shows up and manifests into reality, so that we live in that world where we could rely on each other, learn from each other, grow together, and really just evolve into one. So Jordan, thank you so much for sharing your story and coming here with me today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, we'll have to talk another time for like hours.
Yeah,
we'll have a part 2 and 3 of all this fun conversations. These are one of my favorite conversations. I mean, like my mastery and my zone of genius is really to create content because I'm an artist and I think in pictures and I work with people, so I could brew that. But having these conversations really are what really sparks me and makes me come alive. I really love this type of stuff. So very much appreciated. All right, guys. So for everyone tuning in, make sure to tune into more episodes of Say It Loud, where we get to hear about more extraordinary people doing such amazing, powerful, loving, conscious things for the community around them. Hear their story, hear their services. Let's get together and let's unite with all that fun stuff. And we will be talking very soon. Much love.